All right, so we are recording the interview of Fred Henry Meyer Jr. This interview is being conducted by David Morse from Wright State University's Veteran Voices Project. This interview is being recorded at Fred's apartment in Huber Heights, Ohio. It is 12:26 p.m. February 2nd, 2018. All right, Fred. So we're going to start. So you've already recorded some stuff for the Library of Congress. So this is just an extension from that. You wanted to start in 1947, the time you joined the Air Force. So you want to take it from there?
I joined the ROTC unit at the University of Cincinnati on September 18th, 1947, when the Air Force was first established. And I completed my training with the ROTC in 1949. And I received a Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry from the University of Cincinnati in July of 1949. In July of 1949, I attended summer camp for the Air Force. I was commissioned at Wright Pat in mid-1949. Now, I didn't go on active duty at the time. They offered me a regular commission, but I didn't want to necessarily pick it up at that time. So I went to, I got out and worked about a year, miscellaneous jobs, whatever, because it was that time. It was a technical depression, because most of the technical people in the Second World War were being released, and there weren't that many technical jobs. But anyway, I went to work for GE in Evendale as a chemist, and then I wound up, when they started the uranium refinery at Fernald, Ohio, I got a job with them as a corrosion specialist. And my job there was to make sure that the materials used in a facility were okay, and I did some work also on uranium metal as far as corrosion. But anyway, I was at Fernald for almost 10 years, and that took me up to 1959. So I left Fernald and I went to work in '60 for Aranca. I worked on the B-70 bomber, and from there I went to Mosler Safe Company, and part of my work was to develop the personnel hatches, the doors, safety doors on the missile access areas. We had to design those so they would be drill and torch resistant, and rocket resistant and nuclear resistant. I did some other work at Mosler relating to normal safes or whatever. But anyway, I did that on. One of the things I did there was establish new kinds of plastic tumblers for they use they use a safe deal on the missile silos, and because of the temperature out there, we had to come up with the tumblers are made of plastic, and we had to come up with a plastic that would be resistant down to 70, 80 degrees temperature. So we changed those. When they built those, we changed them to new plastic. It was Delrin. But anyway, I got out of I went from Osler Safe then to Honeywell in Florida, and I worked on the Gemini space program, and this was in 1960, I believe, and no, I got there in '63. But anyway, I worked on I worked on them, and it was they're building guidance systems for the space program, and they were also working on systems for the dinosaur program, which was, well, when I was down there, when I got down there in '63, shortly after I got down there, Kennedy was assassinated, and Johnson, when he became president, he canceled the dinosaur program, and I had to find another job down in Florida, but I didn't do too well at that, so I finally wound up in U.S. Steel, and this was in '63.
What was the dinosaur program?
The dinosaur program would have been the space shuttle, but it was canceled in 1963. But later on, in the early '70s now, the space shuttle program was started. And as I get further on, I did some work on the space shuttle when I was at Wright Pat. This was in the mid-'70s. But we're talking about I was getting to let's see where I got to the cancellation of the dinosaur. Now, so I left there and went to U.S. Steel. I was with them for a while, but then I went to Michigan, and I worked on the Apollo program. And in Michigan, we developed this was the seismographic instruments As earthquake, Czech earthquakes, I became a materials engineer with them, and we used a radioisotope reactor right to power the seismograph instruments. Now, later on, they put that was put on in the on Apollo 12. That was the one after Armstrong, and they put that on the moon successfully. But they put one on Apollo 13, and you know what happened to Apollo 13.
Yep.
So that this was in 66, and I joined the materials lab at Wright Pat in mid 1966, and as I guess as a materials technologist, with especially in corrosion. And so I had been in contact with them earlier because when I was at Mosler, I was developing control and torch resistant material, high temperature materials. And they had, at that time, they had at Wright Pat, they had it was a materials information center. So I got information from them on high temperature materials, which they were using, you know, in space materials and whatever. Now I was talking about in the middle of 66, I joined Wright Pat in the materials lab. And I was there until 1990. So it's almost 25 years. Yeah. So I joined them in 66. And one of the jobs they gave me was to try to come up with materials in electroplating. In other words, I had gotten involved before with electroplating, and they had problem. They used cadmium plating on fasteners on aircraft, and the materials they used, materials in the plating were pretty toxic. And anyway, we're working on trying to develop a less toxic plating solution for cadmium. But also we were working on replacements for the fasteners, coatings. And we came up with aluminum coatings. But now, I'm not sure that they ever completed the system, because now on the F-35s, they wound up with corrosion problems on fasteners, and I think they may be using the technology which was about the same as back 50 years ago, I guess. But anyway, that seems to be occurring. That came up this year or last year. But anyway, then in in '67, this was the 50th anniversary of Wright Pat and of the materials lab. They gave me the job of setting up a corrosion conference for all three services. It was Tri-Service Corrosion Conference. And I set that up, and we held it. I wanted to hold it in Las Vegas, but they didn't want me to hold it in Las Vegas, so I held it in Denver. and that was started in 1967, and that's continued on every 2 years. It was sponsored alternately by the Air Force, Army, and Navy, and that continued until 2000. And in 2000, the Defense Department picked it up, and it's been the Defense Department conference. And just last year, they made it not the United Nations, I guess the Allied Nations. They hold that every 2 years as a follow-up to that.
And this is a conference you had started.
But anyway, then in 67, 60, let's see, in 68, we got to 68, and 69, well, I worked on we were essentially a research and development organization, but I get involved with the, well, first off, we had to make sure the materials they were using, the first one we was on was C5, and the F-111, and worked on all like the Esgadani A-10, worked on the Minuteman missiles, and I worked on everything up until 1990, and the only systems that we didn't get involved with basically was the stealth. So I never got involved with the the F-117 or the B-2. I did work on the B-1. They were gonna build that in the mid-70s, I think. But they delayed it until later on. But anyway, I get a chance to be in the to check out the first B-1, out in where they were building it, and when they built the F-16, they had just finished the last of the F-111s, but I went down to it was down to down to down to Fort Worth. I think it was General Dynamics. They start to build the F-16, and I got a chance to sit in the pilot seat in the first one that came off the line. But I'm a little bit too tall. I was kind of cramped tonight. but I sat in the first F-16, and then let's see. I was talking about let's see the let's get back. I was talking about let's see, about 69 or 70. In around 70, 71, 72, that's when the space shuttle started, and we got with them on, for reentry materials and whatever. We had worked on that on with NASA on the space. On NASA on the Apollo, and whatever. But then then on the space shuttle, we worked with the space shuttle, and also at that time they were, I'm not sure when Apollo 1, the Apollo 1, when Grissom and the other astronauts, they died on Apollo 1 on the ground. And we got involved in it because they were using, for the coolant systems, they were using ethylene glycol solutions. And we had some problems in the field with electronics on the F-111s because when they used de-icing fluids, it got inside some of the electronics, and it caused corrosion of the silver they were using on the for coatings on electronics. But anyway, we changed they changed the inhibitors on the ethylene glycol, and they also changed the inhibitors on for automotive ethylene glycol, for all the antifreeze, and that was well, let me start over here. See, but they made those changes, and we also changed that way. They changed on all electronics. They were using gold, silver under gold, and we changed it to nickel under gold. Changed the specifications.
Is that safer?
And also around that time they had some problems out at NORAD on some electronics due to the same problem. So this was on the older electronics. So this was years and years ago. They had they just had a fake one recently, but they had some false alarms, so we checked out some of those parts, and they changed those to nickel and gold. But anyway, let's see, I was talking about 70, 71, 72. And that's when they started back on the space shuttle, and the B-1 was originally going to be built, I guess, 4 or 5 years earlier, but they built the B-1 in I think they started it in the early 70s, and I got a chance to go out. They were testing electronics on it out in Palmdale, and I went out there and got a chance to check out the first B-1. Then later on, when I get further down the line, I got a chance to, relating to this, starting in '67, I got together all the corrosion managers in the Air Force, and we set up a conference with them every year, and I worked with the field people, and most of the time I was at Right Pat. We'd go out, and we'd go out to each base, 5 bases on each command, maybe every 3 or 4 years, and check out all the aircraft and the facilities and everything else. And I'd go with the maintenance people, and we'd check them out. So I talked about the B-1. Well, later on we'd go out on it. We would have flight line inspections of the B-1s. So I got some pictures here in the other room. We'll probably want to record those. But anyway, I got to get inside the B-1, and also I get a picture there where I'm outside, the B-1. But anyway, during this period also, we had the corrosion conferences, and I sponsored. I would go to the Air Force Academy, and I recall one conference I invited General Poe. He was head of we had a systems command at that time, the material command. Well, I invited him out to make the address at that conference. So he put me in his T-38 and flew me out there.
Wow.
And the current, I think the current general, the lady general, I think she attended that conference back in, I don't know what the exact year, but I think she was a cadet at the Air Force Academy and attended that conference. So it all comes around. But let's see that anyway. Let's see. I was talking about the minute. Let's see, 75, 76. Well, in 76, I went out to Guam, and they're reworking the bombs from World War II. They set them outside, and they were in a facility. They were painting them and reworking them or whatever, and so I went out there to Guam for that time, and then in '76, let's see, then in '76, '77, '78, '79, '80. Well, I was working on all those aircrafts in between,
This was in Guam?
On the A-10, for instance. But in 1980 now, I went on a survey with some maintenance people on, we went out to the, excuse me, we went out to, we made I got a Pac F Cruising survey cap up there on the wall. And that was, we went to, on a survey, and we went to Guam, we went to the Philippines, we went to South Korea, we went to Okinawa, we went to mainland Japan. And if you look and see where Trump went, he followed, he went over there, he's checking them out. I was over there checking them out for corrosion. And in the same year, I checked them out for corrosion on that, and they I briefed in Hawaii, so that cap's got exactly every place that Trump went. Only I was there in 1980 and he was there in 2017. but anyway, I get back from that and it's well, I did some work locally for some of the research people here, and I guess in 1983, I got a Technical Achievement Award from the Corrosion Society. And I've been with the National Association of Corrosion Engineers. I joined them in 1952 when I was at Fernald at the uranium refiner. That's where I picked up the field of corrosion. But anyway, just lost my track of thought. Then in I was talking about 1990. No, I'm too far ahead. Let's go back. 1980. In 1983. I was saying, the society. I got a 60-year service award for that just last year, I think. But they made a goof this year. I got an email from them. They said I needed to renew my membership. And because it was going to elapse. Well, I come to find out that they've changed this so that you gotta check in every 3 years to, I get all free publications and all this from them. Well, anyway, they just straightened that out yesterday, so I'm good until 2020, and they're going to call me in 2020 to make sure I want to keep getting but anyway, it's and I had some awards from the Air Force for work in the same period of time, around 83 or 84, and then 85, 86, 87. I got into the, in late 80s, that's when we had it's the internet now, but they had the system in the military of the kind of a semi-net, and I got involved with them, and one of the jobs they gave me was to I had to go out and get, the technology was such that I got IBM computer, and they let me set up for the chemical agent systems, the chemical the chemical agents bought the people, but they also bought the materials. So I don't know whether they would ever got one for people, but we got together all the information, like with mustard gas in the First World War and all this. And I think it was, anyway, it was, we had to augment I think it was 15,000 bits of information or something like that. But we had a Bernoulli disk, whatever that's where it was back then. But it was we developed that database. It's up in the chemical. It's up in the chemical Aberdeen, I think. That's up there now. And most of the work that I did on the corrosion conference, there's a National Materials Information Center. They have a special section on there for corrosion conferences. So all the corrosion conferences that the proceedings, they're recorded up there, and they're available. I got hard copy, but all of that information's available. And I mentioned that the chemical warfare base is there too. But then the other thing I got involved was to develop it's an artificial intelligence system for use in aircraft maintenance. Most of the documentation is piles and piles of documents. But now, imagine most of that stuff is in computers. But we developed I think it was in conjunction with the Atomic Energy Agency in England, we developed a artificial intelligence system that I'm not sure whether it's used in the field or not. To I met just like all the proceedings there, they were put into electronic, and the and they were put into electronics, and when then well, I got to rewind here a little bit. But
You're fine.
But anyway, see, I retired in 1990. There's one of the things I wanted to edit to this this recording is when I was on when they made the DVD, 2012, they asked me, did I have any other other
things to add or
things to say.
Right.
Well, I think my whole life has been, directed by God, and everything that happens, I don't make the decisions. God makes a decision for me, and I wouldn't be here if God hadn't saved me from dying back in '46, because I had that head injury, and it's just like what they're talking about now, with football players and field, whatever. But anyway, I go down to VA for various services, and a few years ago they ran a CAT scan on my brain. I said I had that almost 60 years ago. That was about 6 years ago, and they said they ran a CAT scan, and they said my brain was remarkable. There was nothing wrong with it. They couldn't find any evidence of that in my brain, and later on, I was in the civilian hospital. They ran an MRI, and they said my brain was unremarkable, except the part that controls language is diminishing. And that's why I talk so much, is because my central system says, if you don't use it, you're gonna lose it. But anyway, they put in for a percentage on it, and there was nothing. And in the nuclear business, you see that one up there. That's the Cold War Patriots. I was exposed to all of the toxic materials known to man, in corrosion. The only one I wasn't exposed to was tritium, And they give me a big list, everyone. And on the nuclear business, I was exposed to just about, uranium, plutonium, the radioisotopes, whatever. But none of them have ever, I don't have any, I can't get any kind of settlement on it because you have to come up with some kind of cancer, and either I become immune or I feel the systems that they had were, I wasn't exposed directly in situations where I might have, might have had got the problem. But anyway, I've been going through tests, whatever, but the only way I'll ever get, they have like a $400,000 settlement plus free medical for life or whatever, and home care, whatever. But I can't qualify for that because I'm too damn healthy. And I was just to my primary physician yesterday. And I got Federal Blue Cross Blue Shield. My primary is Premier Health Medicare. Well, I went to my doctor yesterday for a 6-month checkup. And the only physical problem I have is I've got rotator. I've got I can't get into home care because I'm not homebound. So I get out with my rollator, and I cruise around the area here, or if I'll cruise Kroger's from right here, or I'll get on. I can't go on the sidewalks past the area right here, but if I want to go somewhere else, I go on Project Mobility, get on a bus, and I can go down and maybe cruise all over Walmart, Kmart, whatever, and I can put a lot of mileage on it. But without the rollator, I can't walk a straight line for more than I can't walk a straight line 200 or 300 feet. So that's the only physical impairment that I got. And one of the problems too is that because of the fact that I have my federal retirement exceeds the poverty, exceeds this level, welfare level. But if I go down to VA, I have to pay co-pays, but for any time I need any kind of physical or medical, it goes to Medicare HMOs and then to Blue Cross Blue Shield. But anyway, so I don't, and I can't live in federal military, veterans housing because of my income. But that doesn't bother me because I'm here. I was in a retirement community, and I didn't stay there because I didn't go there to die. I went there to live. And when you get you in the retirement communities and assisted living, you're supposed to die so that they can collect from your estate. But anyway, now my wife, she's got a note there from the Air Force. She she was my spouse, and she's right here in the living room, right over there. She's right here too. But anyway, I'll tell you one more thing, because she's gonna say it's time for me to shut up. But anyway, what I wanted to say to supplement that earlier one, I said at that time, I think God told me to say that, but this was in 2012. I said, if only the United States would do what they did to get out of the Depression, to survive the Depression and get out of get through World War II and get through the wars, which they never won any of the wars in between, but they survived the Cold War. It said if only they would do what they did to survive. Everybody worked together, and that's exactly what the president keeps saying. Everybody's got to work together, and since 1990, that's 28 years. Nobody wants to work together.
It's tough.
But what was the other thing I was going to say? Well, anyway, I said, I just turned 91 in October. Well, in 19 I was born before Depression. I lived through Depression, whatever. I lived through all the stuff that they're trying to reverse history. But anyway, what I wanted to say was that, well, I might as well. I think. Well, yeah. What I was going to say was that God checks you out every 30, 60, 90, 120 years, and I picked that up. I showed it was a heavy metal church. They take in and help the sinners, which regular churches don't really do much good at. But anyway, he told a story, but said that every 30, 60, 90, 120 years, God checks you out. Says, I'm going to leave you in the flesh or take you to heaven. Well, you don't go to heaven. The Spirit's right here. My wife's Spirit's here, and all my friends that are going, they're all right here. But anyway, he said he told Jesus when he was 30. He said, "You go out and start a merciful religion." And that's exactly what he tried to do. So he was out there for 3 years, and the Jews didn't like that. So they stuck the Romans with killing Jesus. So he was out of body at 33. And they put his body in the tomb, but God he decided not to leave it in the tomb at all. He took it out of the tomb. So on Easter, Jesus was gone, but then he came back for 40 days in the flesh, and he was there for the disciples, whatever, and then he took Jesus, he took him out of the body, so he went to heaven, but his spirit was left here, and so Jesus, he was he was a spirit when he was 33. So he didn't have to check out at 60, 90, or 120. Now, I had a boyhood buddy. We were buddies he just died at 91, and we were buddies from the time we were about 7 years old. But he survived to 30, he survived to 60, he survived to 90, but he died when he was 91 because his body was shot. But see, I passed to 90, and my goal is to make 120, but no human has lived that long. So if I can live to be 100, that's great. But anyway, I firmly believe, I'm not sure that anybody else would agree with me, but every time I have a problem, I run into a stone wall or something, there's some God will put I think my wife is my guardian angel, and she's right there and she's right here. but anyway, well, even like that, I got involved with the AMVETS, and my wife and we first met on a blind date in 1954 for New Year's Eve, and great things happened to me on New Year's Eve, but I was down there on New Year's Eve at the Kroger's because I have a lady friend. She called me. She's been a friend of mine since I left 3 years ago at Mercy Sienna Village, and she called me this morning. She said, "Are you dressed presentable, whatever?" She called me this morning, just a while before, and I think my wife is behind. This gal is a lot like my wife, but she on that one down there at I get in AMVETS because she and we were going down to we had a free ticket down at the Schuster for New Year's, so we didn't want to do that, and I told him, "Schuster, give that to somebody that can't afford it, So she went back to her retirement community. They had a nice party over there. I went down to Kroger's, and I went back and I was going to get me a piece of fried chicken, Well, I was back there, and there was a gentleman and a lady there. I got my World War II cap, and had my cap on, and that was. They said, "Do you belong to AMVETS?" I said, "No, I joined the AMVETS a number of years ago, but I have dropped out. But I'm in American Legion." And it was a commander of the AMVETS, and he said, "I'm going to pick you up in about 3 or 4 hours." And I was a guest of honor at that New Year's Eve party. And the next, they've hit a float in 2016, I think it is. And I'll get to ride. You see me on the back of the float. I was on that. They couldn't find another World War II vet that was able to ride on the float, so they had a Korean vet, and I guess he didn't have any legs. I don't know whether that was war related or what, but anyway, we got to ride on the back of the float. But this current year now, they're not going to have it. You know, they didn't have it. They didn't have anybody riding on the float this year. But anyway, and that was. And I think that was, well, and my buddy in Texas, I was on the phone talking to him, and my phone cut off. That's why I went back there. But anyway, that's, like I say, I don't sit, well, my friend and I will she was a vet. She was a vet in the Vietnam War. Anyway, I don't. You know, I have no idea what I'm going to do the rest of the afternoon. But I'll sit here and say, "Where do you want me to go today?" So this thought will come on my mind. But anyway. The last thing I wanted to tell you now is that my wife, her name was Marjorie. She said, "Fred, you've done telling all your war stories. Why don't you just shut up and let him go on to help other people?" And thank you very much for listening to my story, because, you know, I pass it on a lot of times, but I bore a lot of people with it. But when I got a document, I say, "Well, yeah, get the DVD, and you won't have to listen to me."
Well, it's been my privilege. It really has.
Thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the story, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
All right. This concludes our interview.